That's right, new patch time. Patch 5.0.11 is out, and I'm here to simplify and explain all the big changes so you're prepared when you hit the ladder. But I have to warn you, some of your favorite units didn't make it out alive. Before we start, let me ask you, what do you dread most about a new patch? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Alright, let's kick things off and talk about something that's going to affect everyone, the worker change. Developers explain this change as saying that workers felt clunky or unresponsive when they were ordered to attack. That's not really what we're interested in. What we really want to know is how it's going to affect the gameplay. Well, here's the deal. The worker change is actually going to have a big impact on the early game. You see, it's going to make things a little bit easier to defend against early aggression like proxy racks. This could be especially noticeable in matchups like PvZ or ZVT, where workers are used for that early harassment and aggression. So instead of feeling frustrated with your workers, you are now going to be able to use them more effectively to defend and help secure those key locations like expansions. Okay, with that out of the way, let's dive into each race and see how you're going to have to adapt and change your gameplay with a patch. So first off, let's talk about creep tumors and spreading creep. The cooldown for creep tumors has gone up from 10.71 seconds to 13.57 seconds. This has also adjusted our sight range, which has dropped down from 11 to 10. This means that the early game is going to be a bit harder for Zerg players to blanket the map with creep, especially against that early aggression from Terran players that love to use Hellions. If you're a Zerg player who's used to just throwing a bunch of creep tumors in an area and just spreading out, you're definitely going to feel this change. The goal is to give races a more flexible army comp to deal with the spread of creep. Next up, the main structures for Zerg: Hatchery, Lair, and Hive. They now have a 20% increase in the interval of creep spread from 0.3 to 0.25. This also means that our sight range has increased to 12. The idea here is to allow Zerg players to kind of create more wall-offs for early game defenses. Let's work our way up the tech tree, starting with the Ravagers. The build time for the Ravagers has increased from 8.57 to 12.14. This change is specifically targeting those roach-based all-ins, which were often seen in ZVT and ZVZ matchups. This is a very popular early game strategy, but after the patch, it's going to be much harder to pull off. As a Zerg player, you won't be able to morph those roaches into Ravagers during a fight without getting punished, so you'll need to adapt your all-ins and prepare earlier with those Ravager-based defenses. On to the Hydralisk, which is getting a bit more mobility with this patch. The damage point has been reduced from 0.15 to 0.1, meaning there's now more time in between each attack. Also, the move speed of muscular augments has been buffed up from 0.79 to 0.98. which should make it a little bit easier to reposition and retreat after a push. We'll see how those Protoss players are going to be handling those much more mobile Hydralisk when they're firing the disruptor shots. Now let's talk about those late game Hive techs with Vipers, Ultralisk, and Broodlords. Vipers are one of the scariest spellcasters in StarCraft 2, but their abductability is now vulnerable for 0.57 seconds after casting, during which they cannot move or use their abilities. This change is meant to prevent Vipers from getting too quick pulls or abducts on units, giving it a downside to help balance out its power. Ultralisks are getting a bit of a buff by shrinking down. They've been big chunky units for a really long time, but now they've had their size reduced by 12.5%. This means that they'll be better at maneuvering with your army and not getting clumped up and locked in together. Ultralisks now have an increased distance to target before canceling their attack, from 1 to 1.25. Small little guys are going to be much more viable late game addition because shrinking down allows for more Zerg units to get up and close and personal with the enemy, which is never where you want to be in the face of an Ultralisk. Finally, the Broodlords are getting a speed boost, going from 1.97 to 2.24. The downside, of course, is that Broodlings won't be lasting as long on the map. They're dropping from 5.71 to 3.57 seconds. This is going to shake things up for all those defensive Zerg players who love to mine out the map. Broodlings will now be a quick burst instead of a massive wave. Alright, let's talk about the Protoss changes. First off, shield battery has had its recharge rate reduced from 100% to 50%, which means it won't recharge as many shields, only about 1,080 compared to the 1,440 that it was before. This makes it easier if you're attacking with a stronger army than your opponent, but still, don't go charging in to an overcharged shield battery if your army is close in size to your opponent. The Forge is getting a change for the first time in a while. All upgrades are being reduced. Research time is down from 128.6 to 121.6. Level 2 upgrades, of course, have also gone down from 153.6 to 144.6. And level 3, 178.6 to 167.9. This means that you might have to rely on some double Forge play much more to make up for those shield battery changes that we talked about. In response to the shield battery change, the Sentry is also getting some adjustments. Its build time is now faster, down from 26.4 to 22.9, and its movement speed has increased, 3.15 to 3.5. This makes it easier for you to respond to early aggression and defend with Hallucination Scouts and Guardian Shields. Observers are getting a boost. Their movement speed has increased from 2.63 to 2.82, and Gravitic boosters from 1.31 to 1.41. Plus, Observers models are now 10% larger, making it easier for your opponents to be able to spot and take out. But the speed increase is going to help you to gather information and deny creep, especially in that PvZ matchup. The Disruptor is taking a hit, with its Purification Nova radius going down from 1.5 to 1.3575. This means less potential damage against unaware opponents, but you can still zone out ground units and pick off units from a distance. The Dark Templar are getting a change, with a reduction in its Shadow Stride attack delay from 0.75 to 0.71 seconds. This means a more consistent attack right after they blink, which might encourage you to do some more DT harassment. High Templar are getting a speed boost from 2.63 to 2.82. This allows you to keep your units safer and respond to threats a little bit easier that you see with those observer buffs. Like the Ultralisk, your Archons are going to be slimming down. Its collision radius with structures is shrinking from 0.75 to 0.56, making it easier to maneuver around your base and defend against those pesky Mutalisks. This should also help reduce the number of times that your Archons get stuck or boxed in after recalling your army. Lastly, Carriers and Interceptors are going to be getting a change. Interceptors' attack priority is being reduced from 20 to 19, so you can now focus on other units that are better suited for engaging those carriers, like Hydras or Marines. Some big changes in store for you Terran players. Let's start with those Spellcasters. The Ghosts, those powerhouse units that can EMP a Protoss army into oblivion. Well, the Enhanced Shockwave has been removed, and the EMP radius has increased from 1.5 to 1.75. This means that you're going to be hitting fewer units with the EMP, which is going to make things a little bit easier for those Protoss players who have managed to make it to the late game. But there is some good news. Steady targeting is now automatically canceled if the unit that you're targeting is more than 14 range away, so you can reposition or retreat if necessary. So the Raven is getting some major overhauls to balance them out. They're becoming more of a detector unit, with a major reduction to their cost and build time. Now, they're only costing 150 gas, down from 200. Their build time is now 34.3 compared to the 42.9 seconds that it was. The Corvid Reactor upgrade has been removed from the game, so you won't be starting with extra energy. And there's more. That anti-armor missile now only reduces the armor of units to 2 compared to 3. The auto turrets, they've dropped down 50 less health, down to 100 compared to the 150, and they have 0 armor. They're no longer going to be receiving that Neo Steel armor. That means they're going to be easier to get on the battlefield, but all of their abilities have been nerfed. Moving on to the sensor towers. I know, not the most exciting stuff, but let's talk about them. Its range has been reduced from 30 to 27, so you're going to be needing to build them further out on the battlefield, and it's going to give you less time to be reacting to those harassments and attacks from other players. Let's talk about some air units now. Vikings, Liberators, and Banshees are all receiving changes in this patch. Viking's damage point while flying has been reduced from 0.12 to 0.04, giving you more maneuverability and micro-ability instead of just shift-clicking them around the map. The Liberators have also received a cost reduction. Their gas costs dropping from 150 to 125. They used to be great for harassing Zerg players, but with the increased number of queens out on the map, they've become less effective. The Banshees have received some speed boosting here, with their hyperflight rotors getting reduced from 100 seconds down from 125 seconds. They're also going to be reducing their cost by 125 minerals and gas compared to the 150 that they were before. Last but not least, the Cyclone is getting some love for all of you mech fans out there. They'll now prioritize air units that can attack ground units, aka the Mutalisks. Their lock-on range has increased from 7 to 7.5. Magfield accelerated bonus has changed from plus 20 versus armored to plus 10 versus all, making the Cyclone a well-rounded unit instead of just an armor crusher. Well, there you have it, all the big changes for this patch. It can be a lot to take in, but hopefully my breakdown has made it a little bit easier for you so you know what you're getting into before you hit the ladder. So which changes are affecting you the most? Let me know in the comment down below. And as always, good luck and have fun.